reader was already introduced to them, already knew who they were and kind of like what their point was in the story. And then you could introduce their plot lines and their storylines. And like I noticed in Game of Thrones, he does that because like you start with the Starks and literally all of the Starks are there in one place. They all start getting plot lines. He introduces Jaime and Cersei in the first couple of chapters. He introduces like Tyrion right there. So like the first book is all people that you meet right in that area. I think later, like when he introduces like Dantos and people, Davos, not Dantos. Dantos is the fool who. There's so many characters. When he introduces Davos, the Onion Knight, he's the one that you're like, who is this? And then you end up loving him because he's Davos. But like you get to see all these other characters. So when their points of view are brought in, you're kind of like, I know who this is. Why are they here? And then the reader might be like interested rather than put off because it's like, this is a person I've never met before. Why am I caring?
That is really good advice. My first book was written from 7 first-person points of view. And it was, oh man, I revised that thing so hard for like 4 straight years. And I think like, if first of all, it's kind of a different battle if you're writing in multi-first person versus multi-third. If you're writing in first person, I think like the number one thing that you have to focus on is differentiating voice, because you never, ever, ever want your reader to have a moment where they're in the middle of a page and think, wait, who's talking? What's happening? You never want to have a single moment where you're not actively reminded that the I refers to the I that you are in their head presently. I think that the pleasure of multiple points of view is this kind of ability to see like the interior and exterior of so many people. I think within the first chapter, maybe 2 chapters of my book, everybody, all the 7 point of view characters have been established, their kind of relationship to each other. And what's kind of fun about it is that you then get to give alternating and sometimes conflicting opinions, like who thinks what of which people, like who thinks who is a jerk, who thinks who is the best person in the world, who is attracted to who has private feelings about who half of those were supposed to be whom, whatever. Anyway, and yeah, so I think, yes, just establishing these relationships helps there feel like there is like existing history, existing like connective tissue between the characters already getting taken onto the page. So
that's wonderful. That was a nice range of advice. I feel like on the same topic, which is always good. Also, just a note, welcome YouTube. Hi.
Oh, hi YouTube.
Now,
greetings.
We couldn't get YouTube to work, and now it's working, so that's really nice. This is an Ask Us Anything panel. We're asking people things.
If you'd like to ask any questions, tweet using hashtag #CH1Con or hashtag #CH21Con, and we will get the authors to answer those. And no question is too crazy, and it does not need to be explicitly writing related. So
there we go. All right, I'm actually going to take a question from one of our team members who isn't here. Ariel. I don't know. A lot of you probably know Ariel. And her question is, what's one piece of writing advice you especially wish you knew before you got into publishing? So maybe like, what is a piece of writing advice that you wish you had gotten at the stage of their career, like the stage of career that most of our attendees are at, which is like step 0. Or step like 1 or 2, like many of you have finished books, which is like a step, so.
just pre-published.
Pre-publication.
Mine would probably be, and this is really specific to my process, so I don't know if it's like great advice for everyone, but I would have liked to have known like how much revision goes into like a finished product of the book. So that looking at my first draft, I'm not like, well, this is trash and will never be published, but I could look at it rather as, okay, how can I make this better? And like, here are the steps I need to go through, because for me, at least, it was a lot of revision. It won't be like that for everyone, but I wish that I had done that.
I think I mentioned this earlier today. I think the one piece of advice that every writer should actually take into their wheelhouse is to be skeptical of every piece of writing advice that you receive. because everything is so heavily individual, like every process is going to be completely unique, like people's process will vary from book to book, even with the same author. So like something that seems objectively useful is only ever going to be subjectively useful, and trying to apply like one size fits all writing advice to your stuff can be like actually intensely damaging, because then you'll have all of these voices being like, oh, well, X person said not to use adverbs ever, and I use an adverb, I'm a terrible writer, or whatever. And these are just things that you don't need to have going through your mind while you're trying to find and shape your own voice. So yes, healthy dose of skepticism for all writing advice, probably including this piece.
I would say to really write things that only you can write, or if I could go back in time, I would tell myself to be more original, not just with my ideas, but with my characters and my stories, because ultimately the first few books I churned out, they were like dystopian knockoffs or like new adult knockoffs. And while they were really fun to write, because that's what I was reading at the time, I didn't end up sticking with them through what Katie said is a very grueling revision process, because ultimately there were other books that other people had written already out there, and I was like, all right, like why should I work on something for many, many, many years if there's just going to be like 10 other books like that out there by the time I manage to publish it, or maybe I don't even manage to publish it. So the book that I ended up sticking with, I ended up rewriting over and over and over again, Descendant of the Crane, which became my debut. That was the one that I felt like was really uniquely mine, that only I could write. And knowing that motivated me to stick with it.
I think my advice would be along those lines too. And I also said this earlier, but it's kind of like not to pay too much attention to what everyone else is doing. You want to know enough about what everyone else is writing to know, what's out there, and to understand like the field that you're in, and to understand different conversations that are going on. But at the same time, like when it comes down to it, it's important to write what you want to write, not something that you think will sell, or you think will be really marketable. Because I know that was like one of my problems for a while, was I was just wanting to write. I was like, oh, I should write things that are just marketable. So even though they were ideas that I was into, I wasn't allowing myself enough time with them to really enjoy the writing of them and to enjoy the creative process. And they weren't turning out as well as they could. So I guess mine is to enjoy what you're making and make it for yourself.
I love that.
Really great answers, guys.
Yeah, we're both still in college, so we still
You got
just like
nothing to
that
say.
advice. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we want to take a question from the audience?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have a question from the audience?
I'll throw one.
Okay.
Who is your OTP?
In true to form, Brett also asked that question.
I know, I was gonna get to it first.
Oh, that's hard. Is this from books or just?
Any media.
Wow, where to start?
See, my thing is, I know I have a lot, but I can't like bring them up on command. Like the one that's coming to mind right now, I don't know if anybody's ever read Soul Eater, the manga. It's amazing. Okay.
Oh, I have heard of that.
Yeah, so one of the characters is, this is very on brand for me. So there's a character who is named Frankenstein. Stein is his last name, so they all just call him Stein. And there are Meisters and weapons, and he's a Meister, so he wields a weapon, and the weapons are people that turn into weapons. So he's a Meister, and he wields Marie Mjolnir, who turns into a hammer. And the two of them are together, and they have a baby. It is canon. I am here for that story. I got into it.
That's kind of the point of OTP, so.
This is what happened.
Todd and Viola from the Chaos Walking trilogy. Anyone?
Yes.
My favorite trilogy. Puck and Sean from the Scorpio Races.
Yes.
And Rena Sirius and Luna Jenny.
Serious shit have been.
They should.
I was rereading it.
It was right there. It was right.
Probably Kestrel and Aaron.
Oh,
from the-
yes!
It's probably my favorite romance in like
It's
young
so
adult.
good,
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
a lover. And then because I love anime too, I love Lelouch and C2 from Yukugia.
Stay out of that one. Mine is gonna be not similar to these, I guess. I don't know. I don't have one, but one that I love is Ben and Leslie from Parks and Rec. I just love that show. I watch it as comfort. They're like so great.
That was gonna be mine actually, but I will move to another part of the Mike Sherverse, which is Eleanor and Chidi.
Yes.
I feel like everyone here likes The Good Place, which just makes me really happy.
They're all good special.
Yeah. Not liking it doesn't mean you're a bad person, it just means you haven't seen The Good Place.
There it is. Yeah, I was thinking Jake and Amy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So
There it
I
is.
think we're all on the same page here.
These are such good relationships.
They're so wholesome and realistic, like, they're not the kind of relationships where they're over dramatized and like the complex they go through are real and like.
And they're so supportive of each other. in
Right,
all those
yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, they seem to genuinely like each other.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
like shouldn't be like a rarity, but there you go.
So, do you wanna go or should I go? I think technically that was just like a twofer, but.
Yeah, that would otherwise. How about you take the next one and then we'll go back to that.
But in 2 seconds, I keep refreshing the hashtag and just seeing myself on the Periscope and I got it.
A little Black Mirror there.
Yeah, that man, you're fine. Brett asked like 6 questions. Oh, what is your biggest triumph so far?
Ooh,
Pump yourself.
that's a fun
What
one.
is like the accomplishment where you're like, you really felt it. It hit different.
This is like really obvious, but I'm selling my book. Is that too like on the nose?
No.
I was between that and selling book 2, which I feel like is a different, like, it's a struggle, yeah.
Oh, I have a Wikipedia page now, which is.
What do you think? I got most of the intro for your book.
Mine was probably being able to finish my 3rd book was the biggest one because for a while I thought I was not going to be able to write that thing. And then it got finished.
Nice. What about you?
Oh, I don't know.
Me either.
I mean, being able to do these conferences every year is pretty cool.
Yeah, we're a little bit short-sighted in the sense that we're like, just trying to get these done every year. But,
I feel like these are big accomplishments.
honestly, yeah. This is like academic, but I was really proud of myself for, I feel like I mentioned this in the last Ask Us Anything, so I feel like I owe the internet an update. I failed a stats class in college, and it was like really upsetting for me, and it like gave me a whole crisis. But then I like buckled down and worked really hard, and I got a B in it. The next time we're taking it. That's not
Good job.
like, I feel like that's bragging, but I also feel like it's not bragging that I failed it the first time. Anyway, that's my biggest success in my
Celebrate
life.
your
so far.
accomplishments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like actually also thinking of something academic, which is like several years old at this point, but it made me really happy when it happened. I was a creative writing major in college, and I got highest honors on my honors thesis for it. So I was the #1 student graduating in my class for creative writing.
Nice.
Yeah, which felt very special. And now it's like a 3-year-old accomplishment, but I still really like, I don't know, I worked really hard on that thesis.
Yeah, dude, you worked with that. I should have done that more, probably.
Time. All right, so do we want to grab an audience question? Just so.
What is your D&D alignment?
Oh.
Do you want to look at like a chart? Because I may not know what that is.
I will answer and maybe you guys will understand what it is. I think I'm awful neutral because I am a stupid rule follower. But I don't think that I'm evil, and I don't think that I'm fully good. So I think lawful neutral.
I am lawful you.
It's just that. I think like, because I think of it as like as a person and then as all the D&D characters I ever play, who all end up being lawful good, which is not at all like what I would expect myself to be. But like, I think I am like legit a lawful good. But like, and it's like, why? Why? This isn't fun. It's the right thing.
Chaotic evil. I've seen these things floating around on Twitter where I can work backwards if I'm like, I'm this thing and that matches with, I think, lawful neutral
I'm getting a lawful neutral vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's your very systematic plot advice.
Yeah.
Laws, and also there's something unexpected about all the subversions that you want us to take in plots. So,
What about you, Emma?
I feel like I started my life as very lawful good, like very, very lawful, very, very good. And now I feel like I'm more neutral good.
It's my corrupting influence.
It's all her fault.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like a chaotic good. Like everything in my life is chaos always.
That really is true. That's
But
not
I
even
do try to be a good person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
I'm not actually evil. I feel like
Alright.
Do you want me to grab another audience question while you?
Brett just wants to know how much we miss her.
So much, Brett.
So much.
So much.
So much. Yeah. That we
I don't
got that out
know.
of the way.
I don't know if she's watching or which ones she's watching, but Brett, I miss you.
Alright, do you want to take another audience question while I
Anybody in the
actually do my
audience?
job?
Joey.
While you guys are in like the thick of drafting, like while you're writing, are you able to read books that are kind of similar to what you're writing, or do you have to stay like far away? As like
I can read books that are similar.
I can't at all.
Very,
I-
very far.
I think it's actually really helpful for me. I try to do this. I don't do this. I try to do this. I try to like read a little bit of like a fantasy book in the morning. It doesn't have to be a fantasy book, but often it is. And it just kind of gets me in the like word zone.
For me, it doesn't have to be in a similar genre. It's just that after I draft for too long, it kind of starts feeling like all my sentences start sounding the same, or I'm using the same structure over and over again. And so for me, it's helpful to actually read some fresh writing just to like help me like fix my brain. So as long as the writing seems like good, I will read anything. It doesn't have to be close to my thought.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll read something that like usually it's about the writing style more than it is the content. So if I read something with a writing style that I really like, I might read it a little bit like throughout me writing something because I want to kind of like osmose that style and kind of see if I can do it a little bit. Like the first time I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Oh, I want to write this. And I read the whole trilogy like back to back. And my brain kind of hurt after that, but I was like, I must go write something like this. And so I started drafting a thing, and I just try to meld like the way some of her sentences kind of flow in with some of mine, and I was like trying to see how that worked, and it helped me kind of work through the drafting process. So yeah, usually it's just the like style or tone type of things. If I read it all while I'm drafting, usually I'm too busy like looking up stuff.
For me, like if I'm working on YA, I can't read YA. I can listen to like an audiobook, but for some reason it doesn't seem to affect anything. But I will only read adult generally if I'm working on YA and vice versa as well. I don't know why. I guess I have like probably just an irrational fear of like absorbing something and putting it back onto the page and being like, oh, that was my idea, and then going back to some book that I was reading at the same time and realizing that I accidentally plagiarized. It's like a super like irrational fear.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Sorry for the flickering lights.
The
Ghosts in my universe.
So many ghosts.
Alright, we're running low on time. So does anybody have a burning question they would like to ask
Are you all plotters or pantsers? What does your process look like?
I used to be a pantser when I was really young. I'm more of a plotter now. I have to know how it starts, how it ends. I have to know what the turning points are. Usually I'll do an outline, but I don't say that outline is like set in stone or anything. As I'm drafting the book, the whole outline could change. And so the outline is kind of like a living thing. And as I'm writing the book and my brain is thinking ahead to what's going to happen, I go through the outline and like change things. So I'm more of a plotter now.
I would say similar. I think it really depends on the project for me. My first book, for whatever reason, I wrote it more as a pantser. I sort of knew, I think people call it like headlights style, so that you sort of know like what's directly ahead, and then you write to that point, and then you figure out like the next what's directly ahead. For my second book, I plotted the whole thing, and I honestly stuck pretty close to my outline, which like surprised me.
Yeah, similarly, I used to pants, and then I got really burned for it with Descendant because I panned that book and had to rewrite it from the ground up when things weren't working. So since then, that was my fourth manuscript, first published. So since then, I've converted to being more of a plotter. I don't necessarily. I feel like beginnings are always my weak point, so I usually know my middle and then my ending. And the beginning, I'll kind of pants, and then I'll probably rewrite it multiple times. I also read somewhere that you can plot but pants your characters. And I feel like sometimes I do that in that I might know my character, but I kind of have to rework their voice with every single revision, and I'm figuring it out as I go to see whether or not it's working with the plot.
Yeah, I have no process. I basically just like every book is completely different. My first was just completely that's I guess. My second I wrote in like a sequence screenplay format. Wrote it exactly as it was outlined previously, and everything came out like a dream. Third one I wrote non-chronologically. It was the worst decision of my life. And then now I'm working on stuff where one, I redrafted the opening literally, I think, 34 times, and just had these tentpole moments that I was like frantically trying to like vine swing between. It's completely variable. There's no rhyme or reason. I will never figure out how to write a book.
I like to pants. It gives me joy, but I shouldn't be allowed. So the book I'm writing right now, I'm writing with Christelle, who's behind the camera glaring at me and shaking her head because I should not be allowed to pant things, and she knows why. And it's been going since the time. So it's a good decision. I've been converted to the plotter lifestyle.
Yeah, I similarly pants like my first like 5 novels I wrote, and it clearly did not work out well for me because I'm still not published. And I have slowly been converted to plotting, and it's actually funny that you're talking about the covered novel where a friend and I also co-wrote a novel where we pantsed it, and I feel like half the group here has heard about this by now because it's just the most ridiculous book where we decided to write with no genre. So it just covers every genre imaginable, and it was in dueling first-person perspectives where every chapter would end with a cliffhanger, so that the next person would have to like pick it up and try to figure out what the heck was happening in the plot. And we were just very bored freshman year of college and just sent these chapters back and forth. It was on my blog back in the day. So we're like now trying to rewrite it in some semblance of like an actual plot that makes sense. So we're like figuring out how to like actually plot this chaos. And turns out it's a lot easier to write books when you know what's happening.
Wild. Okay, so we're at 4 o'clock. Do you want to close out?
Talking 35 minutes, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to keep people past the deadlines.
Do we want to do our
leave? The door's unlocked.
There's a lot of questions to ask.
Yeah, we have one question we have to ask.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah, so do we have any last questions anyone really wants to ask in the audience before we ask the last question?
Okay.
Favorite fictional character?
Oh, come on.
That's impossible. Next question.
They do a qualification. Favorite fictional character that's influenced your writing in some way? I don't know.
How about writing parents, authors, or characters? Like,
two that influence you, any gender. The thing I saw on Twitter.
They're my writing parents.
Maybe your favorite fictional archetype.
I thought you were gonna say architect, and I'm like, that's specific.
Yes, architect.
Archetype. This is
Amy
really
Dunn
hard.
from Gone Girl.
Just a.
There you go.
Okay.
People.
I will tell you my favorite protagonist from a YA novel. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. I really love Lotta Dracul from Anti-Darken. I love that series. Everyone knows this about me because I talk about it nonstop. I just love how, like, she's not like the normal sort of like super badass, like fierce female protagonist, which I also love. She's like straight up feral. Like she's murderous. She is vindictive. Like she is like really a terrible person. She's based on Vlad the Impaler, and yet I love reading about her like storyline. Like I love it.
Chaotic neutral.
Still pausing.
Hold on.
You're like.
I'm thinking about it in terms of like, I thought about the archetype, and now I'm thinking about it in terms of TV tropes. And like,
Sorry.
then I thought of like what?
We broke you.
I know. I was like, lightning bruisers, glass cannons. I don't know. Oh god, now we're getting RPG characters. Skip me for now.
Favorite kind of character to write instead of the specific archetype.
You're adding more.
I'm sorry, I was trying to specify a little better.
Here, I'll
Sorry.
answer because mine's really easy and everybody knows it already. It's Ella from Ella Enchanted.
Oh my God.
Because I'm obsessed with that book, and Ella is everything I think a protagonist should be, and I can talk about that for 5 million years.
Yeah,
My answer.
What?
I love that book. It's so good.
I feel like I've said more like a billion times in my life at this point too. So Katniss Everdeen is like my own OTP with life character. Where
OTP, one true protagonist.
there we go. Where I just really related to her as a teenager and how she was kind of closed off but really cared about everybody in her life. And yeah, and like life throws a lot of crap at her and she survives, which I feel very relevant in 2019. So.
You okay, Jesse?
Okay, I think I've got it. Okay, my favorite fictional character. Has anybody ever read Robin McKinley's The Hero and the Crown?
Yes.
Erin from The Hero and the Crown. She's the main character. She's amazing.
We will all
Really?
read it.
What?
We will all read it.
Please do. It still holds up. And actually, one of my OTPs is in that book too. Which I'm very sad about because they don't stay together. Spoiler alert. But she is so strong. She decides to go kill dragons because they're hurting the kingdom, but the king and all his armies are like off fighting a war. And she's like, somebody's got to take care of these dragons, so why can't it be me? So she like teaches herself how to make like fire-resistant ointment, and she goes and slays like this huge dragon, and then she goes and kills an evil wizard. I'm telling you the whole plot. I don't care because it's amazing. And she was like one of the first like feminist characters. That was one of the first feminist stories that I read because I think I read it for the first time in like 3rd grade. And she makes choices. She makes the right choice. Like she does the things that she knows are right, even if they're not the things that she wants to do. And that's what I love about her.
I guess I have 2 kinds of characters I tend to like. One would be like Serafina from the book Serafina. I love characters who are kind of like at odds with their identity and maybe like have trouble connecting with other people because clearly like this is self like reflecting. Yeah, and I just love how she's like very logical, and I guess that branches into my other favorite kind, which is just like the logical genius character. Specifically like L from Death Note. I've massive love for him. Yeah.
Okay. Final question.
I don't know why we still do this. Never mind, I absolutely do this because we're bizarre. But we've been doing this since the first Ask Us Anything panel, and I don't know why it's the one we repeat every year, but it is.
It's just so weird that it just kept getting brought back as like an inside joke, and now it happens every conference.
All right,
Yeah.
ready? If you were an item on the Panera Bread menu, what would you be?
I forgot what this question was. I was like, wait, they would have asked me this before. And now I remember.
I am so sorry. I don't know the Panera Bread
Hold
menu
on,
well
bring it
enough for this, but I feel like if there's a grilled cheese on there, that's what I am.
There is a grilled cheese.
There you go.
Justify that.
I will not elaborate.
I'd probably
What is
just be
the
like
answer?
the roll of bread that comes with the salad.
Remember,
Order salad from there, they give you like, they cut a baguette in half and they give you like this much bread with your salad, and that would be my favorite part because I'd feel healthy eating the salad, and then I'd be able to eat my bread without feeling bad. So.
Some kind of large warm loaf. Like something where the middle is so soft that you're like, I want to sleep inside of this bread. I love it.
Okay, so I see on here that there is a, so I'm looking at the baked goods part of it because, A, I'm hungry. B, I feel like I would be some kind of baked good. I just saw bear claws. I feel like I would be this pecan braid. Pastry dough twisted and braided with butter and freshly ground pecans coated with white icing for sweetness. I feel like that's what I would be.
Very creative.
Thank you so much.
Well,
All right, and I just want to say before we sign off, we have video record of it. This is Julie's last year. I'm mad about it, but I'm also really proud of her because she made something amazing.
Thank you,
Happy she
Julia.
did. So we're signing off, dudes.
all three cameras.
Just all three cameras with a collective 2 people watching any of them. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us. Come back next year for the Chapter 1 Young Writers Conference, the Chapter 21 Conference 2020!
Bye.
Goodbye. I don't know how to turn any of these off.
No, that's my phone.
Oh,
Scratch. Shatters.